Hello everyone and welcome to my CBSB and B Update channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The sun had just begun to peek over the Los Angeles skyline, illuminating the Forrester estate with a golden glow that held the promise of fresh starts, but also the burden of unavoidable goodbyes. A paradox that could only be evoked by the world of the brave and beautiful. Forrester creations where dreams and heartbreak had walked hand in hand through the corridors of power and passion. Annika Noelle, radiant in a gown that shimmered like liquid silver in the morning light, clutched the delicate lace of her veil, tightly, seemingly holding onto the memory she was about to leave behind. Her heart thumped with a mixture of joy and grief, a beat that mirrored the innumerable scenario she had enacted over the years. The tears, the laughter, the secrets whispered in dark corridors, the confrontations that had left audiences in awe. She was carrying the symbol of love and hope that her character, Hope, Logan, had always fought for. A child, conceived not just in the passion of a wedding night, but in the tenacity and unwavering love of a woman who had survived betrayals, heartbreak, and the unrelenting storm of life. At Forrester today, however, was different. She was entering a future that promised the ultimate transformation. She was pregnant. It had been intimate, almost painfully. So the kind of conversation that seemed to drag time into eternity, with every word laden with weight, every smile, a promise, and every tear of silent acknowledgement that nothing in their world would ever be simple again. Liam had been the man who had supported her through storms that could have sunk lesser souls. Annika felt a wave of maternal instinct, the unquestionable, fierce kind that turns women from heroines into legends in their own right. As Liam's hands shook slightly as they rested on her swollen belly. In that moment, she realized that her life was about to split into before and after. With the after carrying a story she could not fully tell on screen, not yet, not here, but one that would define her forever. From assistant to costume designer, from makeup chair to director, the news of her pregnancy had spread like wildfire through the studio's corridors with each whispered rumor. The air seemed to thrill with both excitement and heartbreak. As it became evident that Annika Noelle's journey on the show was coming to an end, her co-stars Ridge, Brooke Steffi, and even the occasionally irate Bill Spencer had all offered a mix of support and quiet melancholy. During the months of deliberation behind closed doors, talks with producers and conversations with her, they all knew that the glow of her presence would soon be replaced by the empty echo of absence in the halls of Forrester Creations and the hearts of fans who had followed her every victory and tragedy. The call of real life with its own dramas, joys, and now the miraculous promise of motherhood had become irresistible. A force greater than any plot twist, cliffhanger, or writer's pen could conjure. Annika had struggled with the idea of leaving, of stepping away from the iconic character who had come to represent hope itself. The memories came flooding back in a torrent as she made her final walk through the hallways, rubbing her hand against the walls that had seen her laugh and cry. They included late nights spent in the hair and makeup room, scenes that had required all of her strength and vulnerability, and times when the cameras had rolled, but life had still happened, unscripted and raw. She felt the uncanny weight of permanence as she passed. The writers' familiar offices waving to helpers who made an effort to hide their feelings. After this chapter ended, nothing would be the same. However, Annika experienced a sense of excitement as she arrived at the grand staircase that led to the main atrium, the location of the wedding ceremony just hours earlier. This excitement was limited to the knowledge that a new story was about to be told. One that would not be recorded on film, but rather in the heartbeat of a child she would hold in her arms, in the laughter of future family get-togethers, and in the intimate pleasures that screenplay and camera angles could never fully convey. Even in that idyllic scene of love, there had been a shadow. The bittersweet realization that the actress playing Hope Logan was leaving, that her absence would be felt in every scene, in every vacant glance across a boardroom table or a family dinner. The wedding had been everything fans had imagined. A union that had brought the broken, frequently chaotic threads of the Logan and Spencer legacies together, though the script read fade to black. The reality was much more complicated. A blur of tears whispered goodbyes and the silent knowledge that the true story, her story, was only just getting started beyond the studio lights. Her final scenes were extremely moving, a masterclass in emotion as she kissed Liam one last time on camera. When Annika's eyes met those of Ridge, who had always been both a mentor and a rival, she saw in his face a deep respect and sadness, an acknowledgement of the legacy she was leaving behind. The cast members stayed behind after the final take, giving embraces that were part celebration, part lamentation, the kind of hugs that convey entire lifetimes of shared memories. Brooke, the matriarchal force that she has always been, held her hand with a grip that seemed to say, "Go," but never forget. Steffi, who had gone from rival to sister in the theater of life, smiled with the envy that comes from knowing that someone else's story is going to be great. Annika felt as though the world was still watching, even after the cameras had stopped rolling. Every action she took outside the studio was symbolic, and every breath served as a reminder that life, unlike television, is not rewritten. Even though Hope Logan might still be on screen, the woman behind the character was going on a journey. No script could contain a journey into motherhood, into the sacred space where time slows and love deepens in ways that cannot be filmed. Only felt. She felt the first real kick of life inside her as she stepped outside into the sunlight, the Los Angeles skyline shimmering like diamonds. In the late afternoon, Liam held her hand as if tying her to the world. They had created together a world that now carried the extraordinary weight of a child. They had created a child who would inherit not only their love, but also the dramatic, turbulent legacy of the Logans and Spencers. A legacy Annika knew she would protect with every fiber of her being, even from a distance. The quiet car ride away from the studio was only broken up by the occasional sigh or murmur of excitement from Liam, with fans responding with a mix of joy and sorrow, excitement and nostalgia, freedom, and the bittersweet ache of saying goodbye, and trending hashtags, celebrating the actress, lamenting her departure, and celebrating her pregnancy. Social media was already ablaze with rumors and admiration about her. Annika's voice was both professional and intimate as she shared the news of her pregnancy. Her gratitude for the journey she had taken, and the bittersweet nature of leaving a show that had defined her career and stepping boldly into the unknown, where life off-camera would demand every ounce of courage, creativity, and love she could muster. Press releases had been meticulously planned. Interviews had been held in the quiet of green rooms where the lights were off, but the cameras still hovered invisibly, and the words were scripted, but the emotions were genuine. Nevertheless, despite the significant life change, the actress' thoughts kept returning to the sets she would be leaving behind, the sound of coffee cups clattering, the scent of fabric and makeup, and the sound of footfall echoing along halls that had become accustomed to her surroundings, the world she had lived in. So completely would go on without her, but she would carry it in her memory, in the complex tapestry of emotion she had woven into her performance. It seemed as though every detail, prop, and costume piece was whispering, "Adieu." After years of arduous labor, self-sacrifice, and the incredible experience of bringing Hope Logan to life, Annika felt a deep calm descend upon her as the sun sank, illuminating the sky and shades of pink and orange. For a moment, time seemed to stop as she looked at Liam, who smiled back at her. The world's noise seemed to fade away, leaving only the pulse of new life inside her. The unspoken promise of love that would last, and the exciting unknown of the chapters that had not yet been written outside the walls of Forrester Creations, leaving the spotlight behind and embracing a different kind of fame. The quiet, unassuming, but profoundly life-changing fame of being a mother, a partner, and a woman whose story, though no longer televised, would resonate far beyond any set, any script, and any audience. This was more than just a departure. It was a metamorphosis into a version of herself that would carry over into motherhood, into a life that would demand authenticity, courage, and joy and equal measure. The knowledge that she was entering, a story that only she could write, one that would encompass every heartbeat, sleepless night, first laugh, first step, and the unending love that only a child can arouse. One that would guarantee Annika Noelle's legacy as Hope Logan remained untouchable, immortalized not only in episodes, but in the lives she would forever change through the life she carried. Now, a life that was in every way the most dramatic, beautiful, and profoundly hopeful plot twist of all. This knowledge helped to lessen the finality of her final step off the studio lot. A paradox that only the world of the bold and the beautiful could create with such exquisite cruelty. Annika Noelle found herself caught between the whirlwind of joy and the looming shadow of goodbye as the days passed following the wedding. Despite being a sign of hope, the pregnancy had amplified every feeling, decision, and tension that had been simmering beneath the surface of the Forrester universe for some time. She would place her hands on her expanding belly in the privacy of her home, away from the cameras, and feel the gentle nudges that felt like whispers from the future. These nudges would remind her that life continued and that her legacy was being carried forward, not only in the episodes, but also in the very real life growing inside of her. However, the joy of becoming a mother was tempered by an unshakable sadness, the knowledge that she was stepping away from a role that had shaped her career and whose name, Hope Logan, was uttered with reverence, love, and sometimes anger by fans all over the world. Annika felt the weight of every photograph, script, page, and memory of laughter shared with her co-stars as she packed the few personal belongings she had in her dressing room. Each item was a tangible representation of the life she had built within those walls. While she was stepping away from the screen, Rich had stopped by his quiet, but undeniably authoritative presence, eliciting words of mentorship and genuine affection, subtly reminding her that her mark was permanent. On the show's history, Brooke had been emotional, her usual composed facade, giving way to tears she couldn't quite hide. Yet in her embrace was the unmistakable acknowledgement that Annika's journey, though diverging from theirs, was something to be celebrated, a rare, bittersweet kind of pride reserved for those who witnessed greatness in real time. Steffi had approached with a mixture of envy and admiration, the younger Logan, recognizing not only the talent Annika had brought to the character, but the courage it took to step away from the comfort of fame into the unknown trials of life and motherhood. Obviously, Liam had been the steady hand in the storm. Even he couldn't hide the pain in his chest at the thought of her absence and the void she would leave in their intricate relationship. As filming continued for her final episodes, the tension on set was palpable. She's carefully surrounded by directors, writers, and co-stars who balance the need to finish storylines with the desire to honor the profound emotional journey she had taken on and off-screen. All of this was done to give Annika the farewell. She deserved a farewell that was more than just a scripted goodbye. Rather, it was a cathartic release for fans who had followed Hope Logan's development. Through heartbreak, romance, triumph, and lost scenes were rewritten. Dialogue was changed, and moments were extended. In a particularly moving scene, Brooke confronted Hope about a persistent misunderstanding, a storyline that had been going on for months. However, Brooke's genuine tears and genuine pauses when she held Annika's hand and whispered, "You've changed our world, and it will never be the same without you," were the real expression of her true emotion as she delivered her lines. Annika's eyes sparkled. Each word was layered with authenticity, blurring the line between fiction and reality to the point where everyone on the set was speechless. Steffi found her later that day sitting by herself in the costume rooms, quiet with the air, conditioning's hum, and distant chatter from other sets filling the empty spaces. Steffi began with a cautious statement. I always thought Hope could never be anything other than, well, perfect on screen. You, however, made her real. And now, God, I have no idea what the show will be like without you." Annika instinctively placed her hands on her stomach as she smiled, bittersweet with her lips curled in. She said in a hushed voice, "I hope that what I leave behind is not just a character, but an inspiration. That even when I'm gone, people see Hope and they remember why she fought, why she loved, why she never gave up." Steffi nodded, the words floating in the air, hopeful and sad at the same time. The silence said more than words could. At the same time, The show's social media accounts were already buzzing with speculation. The tenderness in her glances, the way she lingered on Liam during their final on-screen embraces, and the quiet exchanges with Ridge, Brooke, and even Finn, whose storylines had intertwined with hope in ways that left an indelible mark on the fabric of the show, were all noted by fans in every frame of her final scenes. With trending hashtags like #HopeForever, #Annika Noelle, and #Be Farewell. Capturing the global fan reaction, online forums erupted in celebration of her pregnancy and deep grief over her departure. The news was more than just a plot point. It was also a cultural juncture and a real-life drama that was as intense as the soap opera she had helped to define. Knowing that Hope's departure could not be sudden, the production team debated how to address her departure on screen behind closed doors in order to ensure that the audience felt the weight of the character's absence, while also making room for potential future cameos. Writers created arcs that allowed the character to leave for reasons that were believable, moving, and satisfying. There were heated discussions about whether Hope's pregnancy would be mentioned in the show's timeline, how Liam's character would deal with it, how the other family members, Steffi, Brooke, and Ridge, would feel and act. At Forrester Creations, Hope's departure was timed to coincide with a humanitarian mission overseas. In one draft of the story, allowing Annika to step away while still maintaining her core qualities of compassion, determination, and unending optimism, Hope stood atop the Forrester balcony at sunset, the city sprawling beneath her like a canvas. Turned to Liam with tears glistening in her eyes. In another scene that would later become one of her most iconic scenes, she said in a whisper, the camera picking up a slight tremor in her voice, "I've loved every moment, but now was time for her to live the life she and her family had always wanted together as a family beyond these walls." The genuine pain in Liam's expression betrayed him. A silent acknowledgement that their story, at least for the time being, was entering a new chapter. Liam, visibly shaken, attempted to conceal his grief. In the meantime, Ridge and Brooke's scenes were rewritten to show how Hope's absence would affect them personally and professionally. During business meetings, Brooke struggled to keep her cool and occasionally glanced at the empty chair in the boardroom where Hope had frequently mediated conflicts with Grace, and Insight Ridge, who was always the silent observer, found himself pausing in the hallways to imagine the conversations he would no longer have with the young woman who had frequently pushed him, motivated him, and in subtle ways, reminded him of his own capacity for change. In growth, Ridge was the type of person who was always the silent observer, the joy of Annika's real-life pregnancy, and the sadness of losing a beloved cast member whose performance had become a linchpin of the series, found the production crew grappling with an unprecedented mixture of joy and sorrow. Handwritten notes, framed photographs, and even a surprise farewell cake shaped like a tiny baby onesie were all small tokens of affection from makeup artists, costume designers, and fellow actors. These cakes represented both the life she had and the legacy she was leaving behind. During the production of her final wedding flashback scene, Liam's character held Hope's hand and promised her a lifetime of love and devotion in a touching moment. Written for nostalgia. Despite the fact that the cameras were rolling, Annika's real-life emotions took over, and she wept as she embraced Liam, the character, as well as the man, feeling the weight of every goodbye, every memory, and every fleeting moment of connection that had defined her years on the show live. Viewers who saw sneak peeks and spoilers were breathless as they debated every nuance. Had Liam sensed the real-life gravity behind her performance? Did the actress's own departure or the character's grief play a role in Brooke's emotional breakdown? Annika's departure became not only a storyline, but also a global conversation. As theories, fan art, and heartfelt messages exploded on social media to honor Annika, the cast held a private dinner. Behind the scenes, Rich spoke steadily while raising a glass, his eyes shining to Annika, who in ways none of us could have imagined brought Hope, Logan, to life. "We are all inspired by you and your mark. Here is irrevocable." The love story between Hope and Liam would continue in real life, in a life that was now intertwined with Annika's real journey of motherhood despite being interrupted on screen, as Brooke and Steffi added their own words of admiration and farewell. Liam, on the other hand, reminded everyone with a quiet intensity that Hope and Liam's love story would continue. Surreal was the final day on set. Every corner, every prop, and every familiar face seemed to whisper a combination of farewell and blessing. As Annika walked through the familiar hallways one last time, crew members waved, some of them wiping away tears, while others took candid photos for lasting memories. Hope Logan stood alone on a cliffside overlooking the ocean, the wind catching her hair as she placed a hand on her stomach, a silent promise to the life she carried, and to the fans who had loved her for years. The final scene was filmed in the early morning light to capture the perfect glow. It was simple, but profoundly moving. She spoke softly, but insistently to the camera. "This is not goodbye. It is the beginning of everything I've ever dreamed of. For me, for us, for the life that lies ahead." On the set, there was a moment of intense emotion when the director called out cut for the last time. No one spoke. After that, the applause began slowly. At first, tentatively before expanding into a chorus of cheers, tears, and laughter, despite the fact that Annika's journey on the bold and the beautiful was coming to an end. The story of Hope Logan, and more importantly, her own story, was just beginning. It was a story of love, life, and the profound, unshakable hope that had always defined her character and herself. Annika smiled through her own tears. Within the studio, her absence was felt as both a loss and a tribute to a career that had transformed the show's landscape. In the days that followed, news headlines celebrated the actress's pregnancy and departure. Fans shared emotional messages on social media. And however, in the midst of all the attention, Annika found solace in the quiet moments, in the kicks of her unborn child, in the laughter she shared with Liam as they envisioned the future, and in the profound, enduring knowledge that the legacy she carried from the bold and the beautiful, the lessons of love, resilience, and hope would ripple outward in ways that no script, no scene, and no camera could ever fully capture. Her departure was a metamorphosis, a transition into the profound and beautiful chaos of real life, a life that promised joy, challenges, and the extraordinary magic of bringing new life into the world. Her departure was not the end of the story. She had lived and breathed Hope Logan. And now, as she stepped forward into the next chapter, she carried both the character and her own story intertwined, a dual legacy of drama and real-life triumph that would endure forever. Every goodbye, every lingering look back at the studio, and every heartfelt embrace with cast and crew served as a reminder that she had not just played Hope Logan. Instead, she had lived and breathed Hope Logan. As Annika Noelle made her final exit from the studio, the sun was setting in a blaze of color, and she felt an unmistakable surge of life inside of her. Her heartbeat echoed with promised joy and the unshakable certainty that even though the cameras weren't following her anymore, the story, the real story, was just about to begin.